Good afternoon. Welcome to Community and Technology, where we connect the global community with news, information, and resources that will help improve your life. I'm Stu Reed. Here's my
I'm
co-host,
going
Ted
to say
Bernstein.
that some of the stories and things we're talking about will improve many people's lives and even save them. What's our first story?
Okay. Well, one of the first things I want to talk about is what's going on with the driverless automobiles and Waymo. Apparently, in Atlanta, folks are turning down Uber drivers, waiting for the driverless cars from Waymo. They don't want a driver; they want the driverless cars. And there's been
Well,
a big
that's
drop in
good,
Uber in Atlanta.
but there's even more. What if
Yeah,
I told you that AIs are now smarter than humans? What would you think?
I would say that's probably within a context, Dave. If you're asking about techniques in brain surgery, sure. If you're asking about the meaning of life, I say I don't think so.
And you're right on target. In fact, the AIs are proving to be, and I'm working this all up in medicine, more competent than humans in a handful of things, and in medicine, surprisingly close on a lot of others.
Hmm.
But we now have our first clear example of an important AI noticeably better than humans.
And
Because
where is that?
Waymo released the safety data, and they have tens of thousands of trips. I think there were 40,000 in the
Yeah,
data.
Waymo is Google driverless cars.
Right. They're spinning it off into a subsidiary, but it's still owned by Google.
Hmm.
And they are going through San Francisco and Los Angeles and Phoenix and Atlanta now, which is where they got to deal with Uber. That people don't want a driver in the car. They don't feel like talking. Uh,
What do I need a person for?
okay. But something I hadn't thought of, and the data is clear. 70 or 80% fewer accidents in a big sample, which is
Hmm.
what all the artificial intelligence guys were claiming was going to happen. But now there's solid data able to convince Eric Topol, who's one of the leading cardiologists in the world. And
And what did
Topol,
he say, Dave? What Eric Topol? I've heard he's a writer as well. I've heard him.
he's done some fabulous books. Uh, I'll save it for next week, dear Sears. I don't remember the titles, but I'll bring them. Uh, Topol is one of the most respected cardiologists on earth, vice president of a major medical center, led the Cleveland Clinic cardiology, which was world class, and so on. Uh, and is into AI pretty heavily because he thinks it's going to make a difference. And he said, this is our first example. And this is not an AI story, he said. This is a public health story
Interesting.
that 40,000 people die every year from automobiles.
Hmm.
And you want, if one of the key thing in public health is you want to bring that number down. And if you could bring that down by even 40 or 50%, much less 70 or 80 or wherever it goes when it gets better,
Hmm.
that is the kind of intervention that changes the overall life expectancy. Now, that's going to take 10 or 20 years to happen to replace all the cars on the road now. But we now have a big hunk of data carefully looked at. So, one of the New York Times editorial coming from a surgeon, big editorial. I'm trying to get it in front of me.
But Dave, I drive a lot, and I have noticed more and more just people driving very crazily on the road. I mean, the aggressive driving in and out, making all kinds of abrupt lane changes, cutting in front of people. And it seems like I'm seeing more and more of that. And clearly, AI and autonomous driving will probably eliminate all of that crazy stuff, the hot rodding, the showboating, the aggressive driving. So, I mean, if we just eliminated that, I think that would have an incredible impact right there. So, that's probably some of what we're seeing in the statistics that you just cited.
Well, AIs don't get drunk,
Yeah.
and that's responsible for a big percentage of accidents.
Hmm.
The AIs don't fall asleep.
Right.
I once went over a I went into a gas station because I didn't see the edge of the road, and they
Hmm.
had, it was completely dark, and I accidentally wound up on the gas station pavement as opposed to on the road I was driving in.
Wow.
I had fallen asleep.
Mhm.
It happens.
Yeah, we
And
just had a death in my neighborhood where somehow a guy got on the Hutchinson River Parkway in the wrong direction and had a head-on collision with another vehicle that was going in the right direction. I mean, just gross human error. So those kinds of things, I think, probably will be eliminated with the AI
I
and
guarantee
autonomous
you they will not be eliminated. But the evidence is getting really strong that they will be mostly eliminated. But yesterday, the news came across in China, a
driving.
Baidu car, self-driving car hit two pedestrians that are in intensive care right now.
Oh my goodness.
Okay,
Hmm.
so thinking that it's perfect,
It ain't flawless.
no. But if you
Hmm.
could cut the number of people who died in auto accidents, including pedestrians, by 10 and 20,000 per year over the next 10 years,
Hmm.
that is highly likely if we make it happen.
Yeah.
That's good. Second, next health story. I thought we were going to do this one first. It was on my list. We've talked a lot about curing sickle cell with genetic engineering.
Hmm.
We've talked about it before, and we warned people that what apparently it works, which was the early data, that it was working quite well for a handful of patients, but was dangerous as heck. And that they had to do is they had to knock your entire immune system out, and you live for a month in the hospital, essentially in isolation, because you otherwise were likely to
Immunity.
catch an
Yeah.
infection. Yeah, same thing that they do with a lot of the standard leukemia treatments. Uh, well, we now have some data from that work. 110 people have decided it's worth taking the real risk, and came up with the literally $1 million it cost, which most insurance companies would never pay, to get the procedure. And we don't have exact numbers on how well they're doing. That may come out before this airs on Wednesday. We're taping this on Monday, and there's a big show of hematologists that's supposed to get the actual numbers. And
Now,
it's
this is one facility, Dave. One.
no, it's across the country.
Okay, so
Uh,
it's multiple locations.
yeah,
Hmm.
and the 300 people who've signed up for it. It takes about 2 months to do things like grow the T cells that you need.
Hmm.
Uh, so 110 of them have had the treatment now. So it's real. It's a real cure. There's a second real cure out there. They have genetic engineering for hemophilia, one particular kind of hemophilia. They now have data going back 5 years. And by and large, what they do is not curing the hemophilia. Sickle cell looks like it's a permanent cure. The hemophilia they can't cure, but they can bring up your hemoglobin, which is what the problem is and why it's called hemophilia, for as much as 18 months
Hmm.
already. And none of the patients getting it have had the crises that you get of enormous pain. No, excuse me. None.
You're
Yes.
talking about the hemoglobin experiment now or
Yeah.
treatment.
I'm getting something confused there. But the hemoglobin results also look very good now that
Mm-hmm.
the time. And the next story in this one is there's now a second treatment that looks even better and significantly less dangerous for sickle cell.
Really? And
And
does
the
it not involve
result,
disabling the immune system?
yeah, the results are remarkable. It made all the newspapers. I sent you something was in the Washington Post, but they only have 21 patients so
Yeah,
far.
small sample.
So you
Mm-hmm.
can't be sure it looks, but the testing on that is happening across the country, including here in New York at Columbia Presbyterian and Memorial Sloan Kettering.
So what was the breakthrough on this new treatment for sickle cell, Dave?
It was another genetic engineering one.
Okay, did it not involve disabling the immune system? That was my question.
I have to say I got confused because I have three similar things here, and I may have
Okay.
them confused. So
We,
let me
we
check
got to
to make
get back
sure.
to
Correct if I
our
just made a
listeners.
mistake. Cover me for
Yeah.
2 minutes with one of the other stories that
Okay.
you have something to say about. Take the shingles vaccine.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we often talk about health-related issues on this show, and that community and technology have to do with health and how medical technology impacts our well-being as well. Our communities are particularly vulnerable to a number of health issues, one being sickle cell anemia that Dave just talked about. Another vulnerability for many of us is shingles. And apparently, recently, it was just found that in a large natural experiment of treating shingles with a vaccination, there was a 20 to 25% drop in risk of Alzheimer's and dementia, which is
That's really remarkable.
yeah, that's a big
They
that's a big drop.
weren't looking to do
25%. That's
anything
huge.
without. They weren't looking to do anything with dementia, but it was a big effect. 15 to 25% fewer people getting dementia who had the shingles vaccine. Now, people
Mhm.
who get the vaccine may be taking better care of their health and other things, but that's a big enough number that even though that it may very well be significant, I am going to get a shingles booster. Shingles is pretty awful. My grandmother had it. And if there's a chance that it makes dementia less likely, well, I'm old enough to worry about that.
Well, again, your disclaimer, Dave. We're not putting out any medical advice whatsoever. So don't listen
No,
to
I didn't tell
what
anybody
to
they
do.
should go, to
Right.
get the shingles vaccine. I said, this is what the data is. And I said, I decided, but I'm not a
Mhm.
doctor. I'm just a tech reporter who studies this stuff. So I'm not telling you what to do. And you can't get the vaccine anyway if you don't ask your doctor to prescribe it for you. So, but it is a fascinating piece of data. There
Yeah, that's
is
something we're
so much
gonna we're
like
gonna
that
keep our
happening.
eye on. I mean, more and more stories, Dave, seem to be cropping up where drugs have been designed to treat one particular malady and having all these positive side effects, which is kind of nice to see. as opposed to all the negative side effects. Dave, I listened to some of these ads on TV for drugs, and the possible side effects are frightening. I mean, all kinds of, and they say them with, beautiful pictures and beautiful music in the background as though it's not anything, not a big deal. But some of the negative possible side effects of some of these drugs are positively frightening. So it's so encouraging to see that there's some treatments coming on the market that have these positive, unanticipated positive effects.
It's going to get worse, almost for sure, in the next few years. The folks at the FDA, appointed by our current president, are
Mm-hmm.
reducing the requirements for testing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it may be that that's the right decision, because with less testing, the drug will get to market for the people who need it faster.
Mm-hmm.
But it also means there's going to be more that people didn't know and only find out years later. And that
Okay.
just happened.
You're talking about the negative side effects that might get worse.
Yeah, that's one of the. At this point, you can't bring a drug to market without a lot of proof that it's
Mm-hmm.
worth it and
Right.
doesn't have side effects that are more serious.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but we just had a perfect example of that. I, for 7 years or 8 years, have been on a Ozempic or its prior GLP-1s. It's been a very good job. My diabetes is under what they consider complete control. My A1C is 5.5. Uh, and I've lost 100 pounds with, I'm also taking an SGLT2. Those weight loss drugs, they were developed for diabetes, and people taking them for diabetes in the testing lost a lot
Right.
of weight. And I lost almost 100 pounds without dieting. It was really remarkable. But the evidence is now becoming strong that these drugs not merely pull off weight, pull out some muscle mass. That's something that
Is
wasn't.
that positive or negative? You're losing muscle mass. It sounds like it might not be a positive thing, Dave. What's the
It's a
verdict
very
on
negative thing, and
that?
in
Yeah.
fact, doctors are starting to recommend that anybody taking these drugs, and there's tens of millions already, and there will be way more as the price is coming down.
Mm-hmm.
Lift weights and do other exercises, weight bearing, to try to counteract that effect. So if you're on Ozempic, any of the any of the peers that they have, I lose track of the names. There's 4 on the market, and there's another dozen in advanced testing about to hit the market in the next year or
Mm-hmm.
two. Make sure you're getting your exercise,
Yeah,
which
I hadn't
again
heard
does
that
no
about muscle
harm.
mass. That's interesting insight. Had not heard that. Muscle mass loss with the Ozempic-like drugs. Interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ah.
Okay.
Well, let's
So,
take another one that's not good or bad, or it's both good and bad, and people will have a different opinion.
and what's that?
In Australia, kids less than 12, less than 16 will not be allowed to go on YouTube or Facebook.
Yeah, they're regulating social media for youth in Australia. I think we mentioned that a few weeks back. What's the latest update? How's it working
It's
out?
actually going into effect,
Mm-hmm.
and we will have a remarkable experience. There's loads of data about harms to kids. There's loads of parents worried, and there's also loads of data about good things that are happening for
Mm-hmm.
kids.
Right.
I mean, some of the stuff on the internet teaches you how to do algebra.
Mm-hmm.
I pushed a friend of mine's kids just got their visa 2 months ago and are here in the United States from a French speaking country in Africa. So their English is weak, and they should be out there chatting away in English to improve their English. Well, it's going to be impractical for one of them, who was 13, if she were in Australia, to use those tools in Facebook.
Mm.
The
Now, Dick,
only thing,
have they totally eliminated, made it illegal for the kids, or is it monitored by the state or monitored by the parents? How do they regulate that? What is the regulation?
and that's something that's really hard to figure out which is right or wrong, because there's no way to regulate it without very serious privacy problems.
Mhm.
What the Australians decided to do was they didn't make it illegal for the kids or their parents. It's illegal for the companies to take on a
Ah,
customer who's less than 16.
okay.
How do they know? Well, obviously, just asking them is going to get a whole lot of lies.
Hmm.
In some states of the United States, the porn is now restricted from people under 18. And that is driving the porn companies mad as, well, mad is something I shouldn't say on the radio.
Okay.
But because most adults looking at porn do not want a record anywhere of what they're doing.
Anonymous browsing, I think that's called, Dave.
And the porn companies are threatened with fines if they don't require state issued ID like a driver's license or a passport, a
Wow,
picture.
really?
Yep, several states have already done it. Half the states in the union are thinking of doing it.
Mm.
They don't. In Australia, they're doing it with all social media, Facebook and TikTok and so on. In America, we're just talking about porn, uh, and they're finding out the hard way that if you have good enforcement, you definitely are going to get a whole lot of people who are older than that age being knocked out, and you got what could be one of the biggest privacy problems in history sitting in front of you, especially because what was the one that was trying to set up adulterous arrangements? I forget what it was called. It was very popular 5 years ago. It's probably still popular. It was a dating application that you used if you already had a partner and was looking for a second one. They were cracked, and that list got out on the internet of
Oh
people
boy.
who,
Wow.
yeah. So
Hmm.
there's no good security, so it's really serious to take that. Uh, the U.S. has some of the worst regulations of the internet in the world. On privacy, we essentially have no
When you
regulation.
say worse, it's like in none, like in no
No,
regulation.
not none. The Senate 25 or 30 years ago passed privacy regulation that applied to Blockbuster and other movie rentals
Hmm.
and pornography. Why? Because some newspaper got the record of a senator or a congressman who had been renting porn. So
Mm.
that privacy was passed. But
Okay.
serious privacy, and not just on the internet, anything does not have it is not generally regulated. There's loads of particulars on this and what what the phone companies have to do with their records, and they've been fined millions for not following the requirements, and fraudulent use and giving data to brokers who sell personal data.
Hmm.
There's loads of laws around it, but they've blocked every serious privacy law in the United States in the
Yeah.
last 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Europe at this point has some serious privacy laws. GDPR, and they're starting to enforce it. And more
Yeah, they're
than the
much
United
more.
States
Yeah,
do.
the European Union, I think, has some rules, if I'm not mistaken, that are like
The EU has
continent-wide.
rules that I consider very weak.
Mm.
But Donald Trump says it was prejudice against American companies and the Europeans under threat of billions of dollars in tariffs have to give up their privacy laws applying to American companies.
Mm.
The Chinese actually have quite good privacy laws applying to all their companies. So TikTok in China, which is Douyin in China, and Alibaba and so on, social networks there, are regulated by the government with fairly strong rules about kids. They
Yeah.
have privacy regulations that
Mhm.
that not really far by on the U.S., but more than Europe. But of
Yeah,
course,
yeah,
in China, the government is completely unrestrained in what they can do.
yeah, yeah. Okay, then we got to take a break. This is really interesting, and we can talk on and on about that. My take is that the free market has resulted in a lot of abuse and chaos around privacy and abuse of social media by folks young and old. But we got to keep an eye on that. That's a constantly moving target. So we're gonna
Yep.
we're gonna take a break, and when we come back, I want to talk some more about
Let's
AI.
open with the story we have about DEI and equality in college admissions. Something that
Okay.
I never would have thought of how it's affecting people after the
Okay.
break.
All right. Stay tuned.
Give me
You're
a
listening
minute.
to Community and Technology with Dave Burstein and Stu Reed on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after a brief musical break.
I really can't stay.
Betty, it's cold outside.
I've got to go away.
Betty, it's cold out there.
This evening has been
Hoping that you drop in.
so very nice.
I'll hold your hand. They're just like
My
ice.
mother will start to worry,
Beautiful, what's your hurry?
and father will be pacing the
Listen
floor.
to that fireplace.
So really I'd better scurry.
Beautiful, please don't
Well,
hurry.
maybe just a half
Why
a
don't
drink.
you put some records on while I pour?
And the neighbors might think,
Betty, it's bad out there.
say, what's in this drink?
No cabs to be had out there.
I wish I knew how
Your eyes are like starlight now.
to break the spell.
I'll take your hat. Your hair looks
I
hair.
ought to say no, no,
Mind
no, sir.
if I move in
At
closer?
least I'm gonna say that I tried.
What's the sense of hurting my pride?
I really can't stay.
Baby, don't hold out.
Ah, but it's cold
outside.
outside. I simply must go.
Betty, it's cold outside.
The answer is no.
I say it's cold out there.
The welcome has been
How lucky that you dropped in.
so nice and warm.
Look out that window. That's
My sister will be suspicious.
Your lips look delicious.
My brother will be there at the door.
Waves upon a tropical shore.
My maiden aunt's mind is delicious.
Your lips are delicious.
Well, maybe just a cigarette
Oh,
more.
never such a blizzard before.
I've got to go home.
Better you freeze out there.
Say, lend me your comb.
It's up to your knees out there.
You've really been great.
I thrill when you touch my hand.
But don't you see?
How can you do this thing to me?
There's bound to be time to
Think
borrow.
of my lifelong sorrow.
At least there will be plenty implied.
If you caught pneumonia and
I
died,
really can't stay.
get over that old now.
Oh, but it's cold.
Okay, we're back. Media technology with Dave Bernstein and Stu Reed. Dave.
Stu, I promised the folks we would talk about some surprising data about diversity, equality, and the regulations coming out of Washington. What group do you think is the most affected, or has the most people affected by Trump's knocking out the existing rules on equality and diversity?
You know, not knowing the answer, Dave, I would say black men, but black people in general. What's the data show?
That's a separate thing. And black people in general are suffering from that and from the jobs. But it turns out, and I didn't think of this at all until I found the story, that more white men are going to be affected by Trump's policies if they're enforced than
Really?
any other group.
Wow.
Why? It turns out, the data I have is from Brown University, but I'm sure that's true most places, that there are far more women applying than men to college. And in fact, there's substantially more women in college. So what Brown did, because they wanted people to be able to get a date, I mean, would you want to be a girl going to Brown where there are so many fewer boys?
No, I think you selected all girls college if that was your bent.
And some of the girls' colleges, that's not a problem. But that's why Jenny
If they even
transferred
have
out.
such a thing anymore, I don't even know if that's legal anymore, Dave. I know when you and I were coming up, there was such a thing as an all girls college. Barnum was all girls, but during
Barnard is still all girls.
that got changed. Columbia
So
was
is
all
Toledo.
men. That got changed.
Yep. And so on. But it turns out that at this point, more women want to go to college than men.
Mm-hmm.
Significantly more. In fact, more women are going to college, significantly more. So in the case of Brown, to get an equal number of women and men, 7% of the male applicants were admitted, but only 4.5% of the female applicants.
Mm-hmm. Was there twice as many? Or
Not
nearly.
quite, but enough
Yeah.
to be noticed that I said, what? And I suspect they're not going to change that because that's not why Trump is putting the policies out.
Mm-hmm.
But more white men will be affected by Trump negatively than any other group.
Well,
Yes,
they deserve it.
Yeah. So we found this new story that I bet none of our people noticed. What's next?
Well, I wanted to talk briefly about a story, something that happened in Baltimore. You know, we talk about AI all the time, but there's a story in Baltimore where a young man got handcuffed and nearly arrested because AI apparently identified him as having a weapon, a gun. This is a young high school student in Baltimore. He was sitting with friends outside Kenwood High School in Baltimore eating a snack when police officers with guns approached him. Quote, the guy's name is Taki Allen. He said, at first I didn't know where they were going until they started walking toward me with guns, talking about get on the ground. And I was like, what? Allen told WBAL TV News. Allen then said they made him get on his knees, handcuffed him, and searched him, finding nothing. Then they showed him a copy of a picture that had triggered the alert. Apparently, he was holding a bag of Doritos chips. It had two hands and one finger out, and they said it looked like a gun. Now, the whole school system in Baltimore County is using a gun detection system powered by AI to detect potential weapons. And this is one of the examples of how it works or doesn't work. Pretty scary.
It's not going to always work. AI will never be perfect. Just like programmers are never perfect, you never have perfect security in any system.
Yeah, but it's scary, David. It's not perfect, but when they send out alerts to police about kids with guns and it's totally erroneous, that is a big oops. I'm sorry. That's a big error. And that could have tragically resulted in this kid's death. You know how quick trigger police can be. They may have showed up and started shooting before they clarified, ascertained whether or not the threat was real. So I'm just throwing that out there. Yes, we know AI is not perfect. People aren't perfect, but this is a pretty scary example of how AI being used for gun detection and county-wide in the school system resulted in, thankfully, not tragedy, but certainly a big traumatic event for this young man. So we just got to be careful with these systems, Dave, as they come online.
There will be far more false negatives that need to be happening because of how the systems are used in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
In the real world, if 1 in 100 people actually had a gun in a school, it might make the national news and the company would be in real trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So what do? They tune their system that it picks up all kinds of things that are not really guns, but just might be 1 in 100 times. And the result is you get a massive number of false negatives, which is something that is always an issue in medical testing, will always be an issue with this kind of thing in AI use. They overreact, and probably on this massively because nobody was checking it before.
Mm-hmm.
Frances Haugen was a senior person in policy and rules making at Facebook for years. And after 8 years, she said, this is not right, because many of the tests that they were using were letting through many hateful. So she made the decision to talk to the Wall Street Journal reporter, whose book I just started reading, and I'll bring it to there again. And she said what happened at Facebook is they wanted to use the AIs to check what was going across, whether it was somebody committing suicide live, which happened on Facebook at least once, and I think several times, or whatever. But it was because it was too expensive to have people actually look at it when there was a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And that why all the people who were working with it knew they had a problem and needed more checking. Mark Zuckerberg, who runs the company, has total authority at Facebook, decided no, too expensive to try to keep horrible racism and horrible anti Semitism off the air. We're going to use the AI and we're going to hire a whole lot of lobbyists in Washington to try to persuade the people making the policies that our AI is just fine. Companies like Facebook now have hundreds of lobbyists, hundreds.
Yeah.
Facebook may even have thousands. The 100
Hmm.
number I got from Google.
Hmm.
And there's more and more going to come. There's so
Yeah,
much distortion.
I predict they're going to win that fight, Dave. I think that's a no-brainer. They're going to win that one.
Well, they wanted at Facebook, and a lady who was making a good living at Facebook decided that that was wrong and
Hmm.
went to the Wall Street Journal. I mean, first she went to, among other things, because she was pretty senior, went to Mark and all the top people, and they said, "Oh no, we can't do that."
Well, that's
And
something we got to keep an eye on. But now, Dave, in a parallel story, not related to personal issues and responsibilities, but a New York judge just recently, I think last week, ordered OpenAI to hand over Chat GTP conversations in a case that was brought by newspapers. Apparently, a group of newspapers, including the New York Times, the News, Tribune Publishing, and media news groups, they all got together with a class action suit and alleged that artificial intelligence companies were stealing and distorting their copyright works. Well, apparently this judge just ruled that they have to turn over some 20 million samples of chats that have been going on their Chat GPT that gives insight. These are consumer output logs that give insight into just how these platforms are quote unquote stealing or appropriating uh, copyrighted content. So apparently, I don't know how big this is. Apparently, the 20 million
oh, I
sample
think it's about
is
10
a small
billion.
sample,
It's
but
about 10 billion or 20 billion as the likely verdict in this one case.
yeah, yeah. So
Because of
the
some
samples are
really
outrageously
stupid
large.
things.
But it's a precedent. That's what I'm looking at. It's a precedent that granted the plaintiffs are some pretty big entities themselves, New York Times and Tribune Publishing, etc. Uh, but still, they got some sort of hearing, and not just hearing, but they got some relief. It sounds like from a New York judge. Do you think this is going to impact how these AI models are appropriating copyrighted content, or is this just a
No,
battle that's going to go back and forth and stay in the courts?
no. The big decision of whether you can go on the internet and copy everything, or whether you could go to a used book dealer and buy $5 million worth of used books really cheap and feed them into your your AI has not been settled in the United States courts, and it's really unclear in courts in most part of the world.
Mm-hmm.
In Japan, there's big issues about this. The underlying copyright issue of can you read something and use and learn from it has not been settled. It's going to go to the Supreme Court. There's 500 serious cases on it. The case here is that OpenAI didn't just read the stuff and use it to train their models. Much worse. Anthropic has already paid over $1 billion. I'm called up on here. I have the welcome to the Anthropic copyright settlement website. Are you the legal or beneficial copyright owner of a book included in the Anthropic copyright website? And goes over how to submit a claim form and so on. Anthropic agreed to over $1 billion to settle the case because
Wow.
they went beyond. How did they get all the material to train their system? Yes, they downloaded everything in the internet, and that the law isn't clear about. But they also went to pirate sites and downloaded 100,000 books. Clear case of piracy, clear case of copyright violation. Could have been much more, and Anthropic was so afraid of losing it because they went beyond the training on publicly available. They actually went out there to pirate sites and got it, and that was settled as it was going to court. OpenAI did worse. OpenAI knew that they were breaking the copyright law. In fact, and it's coming up in the reporting on this case, the lawyers were telling them not to do it.
Wow. They did it anyway.
And they decided to do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty serious. And then, so they had the usual discovery issues that you have in a court case here. The judge ordered OpenAI to protect all the records. Why they argued about OpenAI was saying that that's infringing on the privacy of our users and our legal privilege. They deleted all the records anyway.
Wait, the OpenAI deleted the records that the court was requesting?
Yeah, no, not requesting. Ordered them to keep because the court might have been requesting them.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay. That is the kind of thing that gives judgments to the other side automatically in some cases.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're withholding evidence that's really important to the case. And you can read all about this in the Times and so on. So the OpenAI case is an open and shut violation of the law and of the judge's order. OpenAI was arguing in court that they wanted to protect their privacy and they wouldn't give the records that the New York Times and all the other people suing them needed to prove things. And the judge ordered, you must keep these records. They wouldn't give over the emails because they said, we CC'd the lawyer along with 200 other people who got this memo, and hence it's legal privilege. And we can keep them out of the court record. They were stretching it on that case because it wasn't really a consultation with the lawyer. All they had was the fact the lawyer was CC'd on note saying, this is probably illegal and we shouldn't do it, which apparently was what was going on inside OpenAI.
Wow.
So it's not an issue of whether they can go to the whole internet and copy what's publicly available. They went far beyond that against their own lawyer's advice and then deleted the emails, deleted all the records. So the judge is really mad. Ordered them to turn over 20 million different chat GPTs, which somebody's going to take some software and go through using artificial intelligence to find some of the proof.
Yeah, that's an incredible amount of hubris on the part of AI corporations.
No, it's not. It's very credible. That's the normal thing. Move fast and break things. Quote from Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
And that is
better ask for forgiveness than permission.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that is the culture of the giant companies, not just in Silicon Valley. You and I know it because we were in broadband and I was reporting about AT&T doing the same kind of thing 20 years ago. knowing they were breaking the law.
Yeah.
In one case in California, they were dumping toxic waste.
Yeah.
And they knew they were dumping toxic waste, but they said, they're not going to do anything. If we
Hmm.
have to pay a fine, we'll pay a fine.
Hmm.
And they went ahead, dumped knowing they were breaking the law, dumping conscious waste.
Right.
I'm not saying that's a function of capitalism, because I'm sure there's some managers in Stalin's Russia who broke orders and didn't want to be embarrassed and didn't want trouble to come down and broke lots of laws too, thinking they could get away with it.
Hmm.
But it's
Well,
utterly out.
I would say it is definitely the culture of power, Dave. Okay, regardless of what economic system underpins it. It's my personal opinion that the power, it certainly corrupts, well-known attribute, and it seeks to justify and increase its own weight and heft, and everything else be damned. So that's to me, that's the nature of power and how it operates.
And we know that it was very clearly, very well known, decided at the top of Facebook, to heck with what the law is.
Yeah.
It's too expensive for us to make
Yeah.
sure Facebook is safe. Do we have any time left?
No, we only got a minute left. I know you have one or two kickers you wanted to get in there, Dave.
Every poor.
I know. We mentioned a couple of weeks ago about the actress who was, I think, signed up by an agent, and all kind of offers came her way. Turns out she was a fictitious AI wannabe person, but not a real person. And you just shared with me. We can't show it on the radio, but they even generated a very lifelike photograph of what this AI person looked like, a woman model.
Oh, and I wanted to do all the Porsches in Russia suddenly not being able to be driven. Every Porsche sold in Russia in the last 13 years has been cut off, supposedly in a security problem. But this is good.
All the Porsches in Russia, Dave, cut off.
Yes, all the Porsches sold in Russia in the last 13 years suddenly froze.
Wow.
Supposedly, the system was trying to track cars that were stolen and protect the owner. But the owners couldn't use the cars either. Was that the
Wow.
Ukrainians doing it against the Russians? Was that Porsche doing it just because they
Wow.
could? That isn't known, but every Porsche in Russia is not working. Tilly Norwood, what did you think of the actress in that picture that I sent you?
Looked like a real person.
Even more than that, she's gorgeous. She looks exactly like you would want the actress for many things. She almost
not my type, but she certainly was a stereotypic American Caucasian, good-looking woman.
Oh, well, the news reports, the Wall Street Journal thought that she looked multiracial.
No,
but I didn't see it. I saw it like you as being Caucasian,
I didn't see
and
that
that
at
she
all.
looked like Audrey Hepburn.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
And
But the point is that it was artificially generated, and it certainly looked real.
Totally artificially generated by a company led by an experienced actress and producer and screenwriter who also happened to have a degree in physics along the way, but decided she'd rather be an actress. And now is talking to everybody in Hollywood because Tilly Norwood, the actress she created, looks great, moves like a human, sounds like a human, has facial expressions like a human. And this is something we talked about before in lots of different ways. And nobody who knows what's going on is shocked by it. Everybody in Hollywood. I mean, we're talking about James Cameron, whose Avatar I get to see on Friday, and knows a whole lot about special effects. is saying, this is unacceptable. It can't be. It's going to destroy Hollywood. That's not a
Well, we'll
quote,
see.
but it was.
It can't be, but it is, Dave. We got to leave right there, Dave. We're out of town.
No,
Out
give me
of time.
one sentence. One sentence.
Go.
The thing that I can bring here is that it's very hard to do that. It was 2,000 versions and a dozen people working to make Tilly Norwood. It's not something you or I can do today or in the next 3 years.
Very labor intensive, but the point is it was done. So
Yep.
it's going to be replicated. It's going to get better. It's going to get refined. Going to get quicker. So that's just that's just.
And Marty Scorsese, the great director, is working with a German company that's doing AI for the movies and is in stealth mode. And I know this because his own agent mentioned it in an interview.
Okay. Martin Scorsese is getting involved in AI, so more things to come. Okay, we got to leave it there, Dave. This has been Community and Technology on WHR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem, every Wednesday, 5 to 6 p.m. Also streaming live at WHCR.org. Check us out. You just might learn something. Thanks. Good night.